BUSINESSWORLD Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm just Delos Santos. It's a start of a new trading day, but first, let's go straight to our top story. S&P Ratings is warning that the country's struggle in controlling the pandemic will likely hamper economic recovery. S&P sovereign analyst Andrew Wood said the health crisis has led to a sharp drop in domestic demand as well as employment. He noted that underlying macroeconomic fundamentals remain fairly good for the medium to long term, but recovery will, quote, take a while. S&P expects GDP to jump by 9.6% in 2021. Wood says a solid growth rate from 2021 onwards should help the government to contain fiscal and debt risks. Bangko Sentral Governor Ben Diokno is more optimistic, saying the economy is poised for a U-shaped recovery next year. He says growth pickup will be supported by the Build program. Jovy also said that the projected 2% decline in remittances for the full year is expected to have a minimal impact on the GDP. He said the improved outlook stems from easing lockdown measures in host countries and improvement in OFW deployment. Over 220,000 OFWs have been repatriated since February. All right, Dan, it looks like the technical indicators won over the cautious sentiment with us having 4 straight days of gains yesterday. Are we opening the trading day with the same momentum here?
Okay, make that almost 5, Jess. Take a look at my terminal here. We are up by 1 and 2 tenths of 8%, 6421.29. This seemed to be a dream, but take a look at how close we are now to 6,500, and that's actually a level that Jonathan Ravelas, who is of course the chief strategist of BDO, is saying we might be touching quite soon. So again, this follows 3 straight days, actually 4 straight days of trading since Monday's trade. Where we bucked the overall decline in the rest of Asia. You can see the 3-day chart here above 5% gains, and the entire week closing in on 8% rally. This, of course, coinciding with our coronavirus cases here in the Philippines falling and staying below 2,000 for a second straight day on Wednesday. And the interesting thing is we're now trading above a 200-day moving average for the first time since 2019 November, Jess. So this is actually a very bullish sign for a lot of analysts. They say that once this happens, it might actually be leading to a bull run. Now, let's just take a quick peek at some of the movers here because there are so many different sectors that had been gaining yesterday. Ayala, for example, was the highest in 9 weeks. The volume of trading in Ayala quadrupled. Now, this is something that Jonathan Ravelas is saying is growing signs of a deeper and widening reopening of the economy that might finally gain some traction. So the support might be at 6,000. This was actually, the ceiling that analysts were hoping to break, and that has now become our support. But he did mention that this would only happen, or this optimism would continue, if the market starts brushing off the third quarter earnings, which are of course expected to be rather dim, and focus on prospects of a longer term recovery. Now, just to add to that, you've got BSP Governor Ben Diokno saying here that the COVID hit on the Philippine economy, so the biggest pain was actually peaking already in the July to August months. But he does say the Philippine economy could continue to lean on the downside. So still a lot of caution there. There are people, however, still looking at those third quarter earnings. For example, we had reported BPI yesterday. I'll just pull that out for you while we're at it. But that was actually one of the worst performers yesterday after those third quarter earnings. And ahead of those earnings, we actually saw BPI rallying a lot of positioning ahead of that. And then it fell by almost 3.7% yesterday after that 14% rally ahead of the earnings. And this is actually, according to Morgan Stanley, the fact that higher than expected net interest income was offset by the higher costs in BPI. He did mention that the provisions were modestly below their expectations and the non-performing loans were rising sharply versus the previous quarter. So still a lot of disappointment on BPI after those earnings. But you can see that right now it seems to be rebounding. That's up by 1 and 6/10 of 8%. Another very interesting point here is the fact that foreigners are starting to be more optimistic about our prospects. We had the first back-to-back net inflows since a really long time. I can't really see in my chart here when that has happened, diba? Parang I think August pa. So this is according to AP Securities' analyst Rachel Cruz. There might also be a relation with the fact that because of the U.S. presidential elections, recall that that's, the debates are happening at this moment, there might be some shifting from those funds towards emerging markets. So we did see net buying for a second day. So we got around $4.41 million from our foreign investors. And I just want to take a quick peek while we're at it, at those U.S. stocks and how they are performing or how they performed overnight ahead of this debate, which is ongoing tonight in the U.S. A bit of a gain here. So Dow Jones up by 0.5%, NASDAQ as well up by 0.2%. But you can see in Europe that it's a bit of a bleaker picture. This comes after evidence there that pandemic is worsening. You've got Germany having infections surging to a record. Spain's health minister saying the spread of coronavirus is out of control in certain parts of the country. Now, just a couple of stocks that I wanted to get through here. Since we're at it, we're gonna have Discovery World. So we did report the fact that you've got tourism here slowly picking up. Now hotels are allowed to be at 100%, diba? But you've also got Discovery World selling part of its shares here. That is to JT Pearl. Okay, so that's around 10% of Discovery World shares. And after that, it climbed to as much as 40% after the trading the trading ban was actually halted there. They say that proceeds will be used as working capital to help finance this tourism or hotel brand. And another one, since we're on the topic of properties, you've got a REIT giving some clarity to their plans. They're set to acquire some property and sell bonds or shares. So they're set up to buy 12 billion peso credit facilities with some banks. So they're going to be acquiring property in Pasig from Ayala Land for 5.1 billion pesos. They're also planning to tap that bond market. So that's going to be 6.4 billion pesos in bonds. A-REIT now trading at 25 pesos and 17 centavos this morning. Jess, that's actually a really long market hit for me. Sorry for all of that information.
But you know what? It's something that we need, especially like what you mentioned earlier. Peak of the pain, according to BSP Governor Ben Diokno, was experienced in the third quarter. Let's see how that's going to feed into corporate earnings here. And you've got one right here for us. You have yours. Give us a lowdown on that one.
Okay, so URC, a lot of attention on this stock, especially since it's a consumption stock, and then a lot of people are supposed to be panic buying a lot of the URC products here. Let's take a look at the terminal as well as the graphics you're going to be seeing. 9-month net income up 12% to 8.1 billion pesos. That's on the back of third quarter net income up by 5.5% to 1.97 billion dollars. The third quarter revenue, however, was actually down year on year, so down by 1.2% to 32 billion, but that was offset by some cutting in costs, and that brings your 9-month revenues up by 2%. So you can see in my terminal that URC is actually gaining by 0.4%, and I just want to do a very, very quick check here of what analysts had been expecting. Really, they were expecting a net income of around 4 billion for the fourth quarter. So it's very interesting to see whether that's actually going to be happening, and around 1.96 billion. So this is a little bit of a beat compared to the estimates on Bloomberg, and it seems to be the case that URC is also rallying on the back of that, and also amid the excitement that's going on in the rest of the local boards. Meanwhile, Jess, you've also got, despite the fact that the markets are rallying, there are still a lot of uncertainties when it comes to foreign investments coming into the markets from an economic perspective. No recovery yet in terms of that.
No recovery just yet, like what you mentioned, that in fact, the region's worst laggard here for the Philippines here. This, of course, after a note released by the Institute of International Finance shows that non-resident capital flows in the country actually dropped by 41%, declining the second after the country has imposed a stringent lockdown in the region here. And we do recall, of course, that we reinforced heavy restrictions back in August, and that has caused further damage to the economy here. In fact, if you try to take a look at a regional perspective here in the Asia 6, you'd see here while other countries actually would look like they have bigger declines here, the likes of India, wherein investments actually dropped by as much as $38 billion, and Korea too declining to $12 billion. You'd see here the Philippines has the steepest decline, like what I mentioned, at 41%. And out of the six countries, it's only Thailand that is expected to record an uptick when it comes to foreign direct investments. But according to IIF as well, political tensions happening in Thailand is actually a cause for concern. Originally, FDI is expected to fall to $90 billion by year end, but they are expecting a rebound come next year in 2021. Capital flows is expected to be at $119 billion. This as economies recover. They are expecting FDIs to increase as more countries diversify their supply chain away from China. And of course, this is something that our authorities, trade authorities at least, are expecting that the country can actually better take advantage of. The IIF is saying that the Asia 6 has better growth prospects, has a solid macro fundamentals as well as advancement of reforms. And that in turn results as well to strong external positions. But there are, however, some downside risks. They are flagging the possibility of new wave of infection similar to what's happening now in the US and in Europe. And that could potentially, of course, give rise to renewed lockdowns across the region.
Okay, so a bit confusing here, Jess, in terms of whether we should be dependent or not on China when it comes to trade, especially since they've been posting growth in the third quarter.
Now, here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Philippines' garment exports to major buying partners slumped by 39% due to COVID-19, putting hundreds of thousands of local jobs at risk. This is according to a study by the International Labor Organization. The research stated that Philippines is one of the countries that saw the biggest percentage drop in garment exports to major buyers along with China, India, and Sri Lanka. The major decline, the group said, is based on the plunge in garment imports to the United States, the European Union, and Japan. This puts an estimated 600,000 workers in the sector at risk. A report by Nikkei Asia, meanwhile, said Philippine garment exporters expect to cut at least 20,000 jobs amid losses from the pandemic. This as demand for garment exports in Asia plunges and government-imposed lockdown measures disrupt supply chains. During the lockdown, local garment exporters shifted their production to manufacturing PPEs and face masks. The International Labor Organization expects a restructuring in the global garment industry in the years to come.
The Asian Development Bank says the growth of MSMEs is being hampered by their difficulty in obtaining bank financing. The multilateral bank pointed out that the share of MSME credit to the total bank credit has been falling to less than 10% since 2013. ADB says more and more lenders are not complying with the mandatory credit allocation to small businesses. Now, last year, the share of MSME loans to the total lending portfolio of banks fell to just about 6%. That's from 11% in 2010. This means more financial institutions still prefer to pay the penalties rather than take on risks associated to lending to such firms. Now, as the ADB pointed out, this is hampering the growth of small businesses, which remain to be a driving force for the Philippine economy. Note that MSMEs make up 99.5% of total businesses and 63% of the total labor force here in the country.
Tech and digital solutions for businesses have been at the forefront since the pandemic struck, and that's precisely what's going to be in focus in this year's Philippine Digital Convention Impact. Now, to talk about that, we have Jovy Hernandez, ePLDT President and CEO, as well as the Senior Vice President and Head of PLDT and Smart Enterprise Business Groups. Good morning, Sir Jovy. Great to have you here with us on the show.
Good
Hi,
morning.
sir. Welcome back.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Let's kick things off. Why Impact, and what does it mean for PLDT, and how does that encompass this year's convention?
Well, if you take a look at previous years, we have always focused on technology, the new technologies that are coming in. This year, we made the decision to, first of all, be very in sync with our renewed vision PLDT enterprise is really looking at making a positive impact on every single business. But I think more importantly, with the COVID pandemic that has struck the nation, I think you just mentioned MSMEs are actually hard up. This convention is actually taking a look at technology and how we can help businesses not only recover and rebuild, but more importantly, rediscover their inspiration and really reinvent themselves to be ready for the new normal.
Sir Jovy, we've been participating in this big event every year. I was one of the moderators and hosts last year. It was so exciting. It was physical presence here with so many delegates. A really big event. What should people be expecting this year? Now it's become virtual. Now, is there going to be a key difference, not just in the setting, but also in the type of topics that you're going to be taking up, especially during this pandemic?
Right. Thanks, Danie. I'm sure you remember me jumping off a 50-foot screen. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
But you never know. We don't know.
No, but because it's digital, with the one press of a button, I could make myself disappear, right? So, but anyways, this year is going to be fully digital. You're correct. First and foremost, I think what's very exciting is that the event is now going to be 3 days. As supposed to be, before it was only 2 days. So we will have more plenary sessions. We will have more breakout sessions. So we can take a look at all of the industries that are actually very interesting in the Philippines despite the pandemic. So we will have those breakout sessions. Our plenary sessions this year is something to look forward to. Our roster of speakers are really fantastic. I think this is the best one yet.
Okay, can you actually give us a flavor of who these speakers are? I mean, what we like about webinars, sir, is that you're actually able to get people from all over the world, and reach even more people that probably would otherwise not have come here and flown all the way, diba?
Right. So first of all, thank you to all of our partners who made this happen. So we promise to make it a fully immersive digital experience. Everybody will have the chance to be part of the convention for 3 days at the comfort of their homes. On day one, we will actually have in the plenary session our own MVP. We have the chairman and CEO of Cisco, Mr. Chuck Robbins, who will be with us. And we also have Sanjay Kao from Cisco as well. And day one, I guess the highlight would be Academy Award-winning actress Gwyneth Paltrow will be with us.
Wow.
Yes, it was quite interesting because apart from being a famous actress, apparently even before she became an actress, she really wanted to be a businesswoman. And she's now chairman and CEO of her new company called Goop, which I think is making waves. So this is part of us trying to make our countrymen more inspired in terms of really making a difference and making an impact to the country despite the pandemic.
Okay.
So day two is also going to be very interesting. We have Al Padillo, we have Pekka Lundmark from Nokia. Pekka is quite an interesting guy, new CEO of Nokia, and his topic would be the rock and roll impact of Industry 4.0. So that's going to be interesting. We have Kazuhiro Gomi-san from NTT. He's the CEO of NTT Research based out of the US. And he's going to talk about quantum computing, which is quite interesting in the technology field. So it's a very interesting lineup of speakers.
Mm-hmm. You had me at Gwyneth Paltrow there, sir. But
I like this gender balance panel, sir.
Of course.
Go, Jess.
Well, you did mention this is going to be the first all-virtual convention, and it's going to be a game changer, definitely. But do you think might this be actually a new trend for the yearly convention in the years to come?
Well, if you take a look at the benefits, where we have a better reach in terms of the audience. In fact, this year's convention is going to be all across Asia Pacific. On average, every year we get about 2,000 to 2,500 C-level delegates in the country. And as of 2 days ago, when I got the report, we already have almost 5,000 registrations, and it's still coming. So the platform that we've prepared, and kudos to the whole team who made this happen, we are prepared to have as much as 10,000 delegates concurrently in our platform. And face-to-face is still important, I think, in the future. But we're going to see more and more of these interactive digital conventions, I think. And I think the way we're trying to communicate the message is really going to be very effective.
Sir, one thing I noticed about the difference between last year's Digicon and this year, and I also hosted a tech talk. It's very much linked. So you're focusing a lot on the industries of the future, diba? And you're
Correct.
actually grouping together. I don't know, public sector, healthcare sector, BPO sector. Why is that? And what do you hope to achieve in this year's actually grouping these different sectors and trying to get engagement per sector? Is there a real thing that you want to achieve in that when it comes to also the technologies that you want to be promoting and rolling out?
Yes, definitely, Danie. If you take a look at the real impact of COVID, the negative impact has been very immense at the beginning of the year. While we are trying to battle in terms of really recovering, what has been very clear to us is that industries need to change. And that is really our call for rediscovery and reinvention. So almost all industries now have to go to the letter E. I mean, we take a look at schools. We're now e-learning, right? Take a look at healthcare. Everybody's moving into e-health and e-consultations. And we're saying that through this convention, we could probably help the industries to transition from being traditionally just brick and mortar, having a little bit of digital, and now really moving into e-industries, as we call it. And that's, I think, going to be very critical moving forward.
All right. In fact, I already got some of the materials for the panels. I'll be hosting 3 of the panels for this year's convention. And like what you did mention, a lot of it has to do with adoption here, especially since you have the pandemic here in the backdrop. But last year, centered with new tech and the rollout of 5G. Now, given the pandemic, will there be a shift in strategy? Are there other technologies that we can expect from the convention?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of new technology that we'll be discussing, but I guess from the standpoint of PLDT, I think our strategy has been very clear. We think fiber is the most stable connection. If you take a look at workplace transformation, that spans across all industries. Even the home now is becoming the school, the home is becoming the office. So there is a very aggressive campaign for us to really roll out massive fiber deployments. In fact, we've made a decision, a very bold statement, that we want to migrate all of our copper to fiber. That's, I think, going to be very critical. So aside from that, there's a lot of new technologies that are happening. We really want to hear it from Cisco in terms of the latest of networking, which is going to be very critical for enterprises. And then there's a lot more that's going to be shown. I just can't say completely now so that we will not destroy the element of surprise. But again, the difference this year is not only focusing on technology, but focusing on what impact it can do to the businesses. Because at the end of the day, even for the businesses out there, right? At the end of the day, why are we doing this? Not only for profit, but at the end of the day, we should make a positive impact to the lives of every Filipino. And I think that's really the call to action that we want for this convention.
Sir, I think I just want to jump off on that last point here as our last question. Like Jess said before, it was really about PLDT becoming more forward looking, going ahead of the curve, tapping into 5G, being really the leading in terms of technology. Now you're shifting it towards people, and you're shifting it towards enterprises, a bit less on how modern technology and everything, and a bit more on just try and survive this pandemic, just try and see what resources we already have. You were mentioning schooling, diba? Parang it's such a basic need, and even in these basic things. So is this, you mentioned the term impact. Is this really the purpose of this convention? You want to be able to reach the more basic needs of the Filipinos. You want to be able to really give solutions during these most difficult times, rather than be ahead of the group, be super innovative, and chase all of these technologies.
Thanks so much, Danie. In fact, it was our chairman who said it before, right? In the end, technology is about being human. And that is the reason why we've also changed our vision. Yes, we could be number one in all of these technologies, but at the end of the day, why are we here? We're here to make a positive impact on the customers that we serve so that they can make a positive impact to their own customers. And at the end of the day, it's a whole ecosystem, a positive ecosystem that we want to develop. It doesn't mean that we will not be number one in technology. We will still pursue that. But at the end of the day, we do not want to lose sight of what is important. which is really making a positive impact on the lives of Filipinos. And I think that will really drive everybody forward if we put our sights into that.
All right, definitely using technology to impact consumers. Again, impact the Philippine Digital Convention 2020 is going to happen next week. That's October 28 to 30. Thank you very much, Mr. Jovy Hernandez.
Go ahead,
One
sir.
last one. It's like Meralco, diba? Electricity. You don't care if it's hydroelectric or nuclear or whatever. As long as you turn your lights on, it's there. You're happy. That's the kind of thing that we need to do for the technology. As long as it makes it our business work and our business flourish, then our customers will be happy.
Definitely, definitely. So lots of things to be excited for next week. Again, the Philippine Digital Convention, October 28 to 30. Thank you very much, Jovy Hernandez, ePLDT President and CEO, and Senior Vice President and Head of PLDT and Smart Enterprise Business Groups. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that's a first look into... Go, Jess.
Anyway, it's a weekend, and that's the first look into this Friday, October 23, 2020. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. Catch us again Monday, 9:30 a.m. Have a great and restful weekend, guys.